And just like that, the 2023-2024 NFL season is behind us. Man, it's been a wild ride. So many injuries, some good games, some good storylines, a lot of romance between you know who and you know who. But at the end of the day, I'm just glad we got a good Super Bowl that was back and forth. And a lot of them recently have been, except for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Chiefs won a few years ago. So really happy to see that. I really wanted someone besides the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes to win the Super Bowl for once. There's just been a lot of them lately. But hey, I mean, about 5-6 years ago, it was always the Patriots. So, I mean, there's still been some turning of the guard or whatever they say.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, you know, what Mahomes said at the end of the game, like this is a new dynasty. Yeah, so it very well could be.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably, like, I would be shocked if he doesn't win at least 2 more in his career. I mean, at this rate.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 28.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I could see it kind of going off the rails is because I think we talked about this before. Andy Reid and Travis Kelce are very liable to retire in the next 2-3 years here. I think, you know, Travis Kelce could even retire in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Especially seeing how they went out this year, and Andy Reid obviously with some health issues and getting up there as well. And, you know, he's won a bunch now. I mean, I could very well see him retiring. So, you know, and when that time comes, we'll see how much of the success was due to them or how much of it was due to Patrick Mahomes. And, you know, we'll have that conversation we had when Tom Brady and Bill Belichick split. But we're going to get into the Super Bowl recap here. Obviously, Jake, you picked correctly Kansas City. You know, it's so hard for me to pick against Patrick Mahomes, but I wanted to be different. I really felt that they would regress to the median like we talked about.
I mean, it really seemed like they did. Like at the start of the game.
Certainly did.
I mean, I know you didn't have the opportunity to watch the full game, but I mean, they were looking bad at the start.
No, I know. I mean, they had like negative yards on their first couple drives, and, you know, I correctly thought that the Niners would not have another bad start to a game like they did against the Packers and the Lions. You know, they had a really good start except for that McCaffrey fumble, which, you know, when you see that in the Super Bowl, like at the beginning, it's like almost, I knew they were going to lose. Like, your best player can't fumble and you still end up winning. Like, you can't fumble, what was on like the 27-yard line and still end up winning. I mean, some of the mistakes the Niners made, you just can't make against the best quarterback coach combo, the best team in the league for the last few years. And the Chiefs definitely had opportunities. They left things on the table to be had. I mean, like,
there were turnovers galore for their team too. Yeah,
Pacheco matched McCaffrey with a fumble of his own. I mean, Mahomes threw a horrible interception that they weren't able to capitalize on. They punted the ball a bunch. And Jake Moody, you know, their kicker who had been problematic recently, he's making 50-yarders. Like, it's no problem out here. He did miss the extra point, which was unfortunate. But I really thought, excuse me, the Niners had a lot of opportunities in this game, and they squandered them. Like, the Chiefs were very much so vulnerable as they had been for most of the year. And just like the Bills game, I thought they squandered it as well. I mean, the Dolphins and the Ravens didn't even come close, but the Niners and the Bills, they blew their opportunities when the Chiefs, you know, made mistakes and opened the door for them to come in. And, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, if you give Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes that many chances to, you know, put points up on the board and take control of a game, they are going to do so. It's literally inevitable. And the Niners just kept on letting them in. So,
yeah, it was really just shocking to me, man. I mean, the Niners started off so strong. They marched right down the field on that first possession. They made it look so easy.
Yeah, they did. They really did. I mean, they clearly thought about the plays that they were going to call on that first drive and attack Kansas City's defense. I thought Brock Purdy played really well. I mean, there were a few plays, especially when he got blitzed, that he just seemed to panic and throw the ball away. I mean, he did make some good plays. I remember that throw on the run to Kyle Juszczyk on the sideline. But on his very last play, the last play of the Niners offensively in overtime, he gets blitzed and he just kind of floats the ball into the end zone, and it's overthrown. But Christian McCaffrey was open, it looked like, on the left side, and he could have easily gotten the first down. I thought, and I mean, that's just the difference in the ball game right there. I mean, obviously, there are a few plays that contributed to that. But overall, I'm happy that Brock Purdy didn't have a stinker of a game, because then everyone would just come for his throat.
For sure.
I mean, I feel so bad for the guy.
Yeah.
Being the last pick in the draft, no one thinks that that pick can't ever succeed. And he'll never be able to shake that until he starts winning like multiple Super Bowls. I mean, I don't think even if he won this one, they would
wouldn't.
shag. Yeah,
they would still attribute it to the talented roster.
Yeah, they're going to say McCaffrey, Kyle Shanahan, and all of that. So I'm just glad he didn't turn the ball over. So there's nothing in his box score that someone can point out and chastise him about, because I'm not sure if anyone can really handle that kind of criticism.
I mean,
so at the end of the day, I'm
not.
happy about that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, how about the mental fortitude on this guy, right?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
24 years old. Everyone's calling him Mr. Irrelevant.
I know. It's like everyone's saying he can't win the big game. I mean, he's only like 2 years into the league. He's only started like a season and a half. And he's only lost really one playoff game, being this one, the one against the Eagles last year when he couldn't even throw the ball. It's just, can't even count that. So, yeah, I mean, it's just tough. I really love seeing some other colors get in there besides the stupid red and yellow. But I respect him immensely. I don't think it's rigged or anything like that. I don't think there were any calls in this game that went, or favored one team or the other.
No, I agree. It seemed very fair play from the refs, especially for a game in Vegas. So
right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it did kind of seem at the beginning that the refs had the under, though.
Yeah,
I will say that.
Dude, it was really going slow start.
I watched some videos and the sharps were on the under, but like I kept going back to like, they want points in the Super Bowl. Like, they want that excitement. And, at the first 3 quarters of the game, it was sloppy. It was not really that, captivating, I guess, for, in terms of thrills. But
the craziest part about that is that the line was set at 47.5 at the start of the game, or like the week leading up to the game.
Right.
And just like few hours before game time, it moved down to 46.5.
That's wild,
Yeah, of course. It finishes at 47.
See, it's like, the script maker was like, oh, we got to make this one last change. Jake Moody's going to miss the extra point. And then Vegas had to take the over-under down one, because the script changed a little bit, last-minute change.
Just slight change, yeah.
That's wild, though, the fact that it went down 1 point. And
it split the difference between the two of them.
That's crazy. But, I mean, it really did look like it was easily going to hit the under for most of the game.
Yeah.
Until, it went to overtime, and then things could change a little bit there. But, man, I know I had a few more thoughts on this game. At the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is just an absolute animal. I don't think he played like his best game, but he's just so dangerous. You can't beat him through he's going to just run away from everything. I mean, the amount of first downs he got with his legs in this game. I mean, there was that one run he had before the touchdown, or maybe it was like 2 plays before the touchdown to end the game. I thought he was going to go all the way. I mean, I think he ripped off like a 20-yarder.
The Giga Scamper.
The Giga Scamper indeed. I thought he was going to, take it all the way home on that. I mean,
his rushing yard prop before the game was set at just 26.5, and he finished with 66.
So 400 total yards with 333 passing yards. So huge game from him. And, man, when they had that 4th and 1 in overtime, I was like, there is no way the Chiefs are not getting this. Like, I cannot imagine the Chiefs not getting a 4th and 1 in the Super Bowl when they absolutely have to have it. And sure enough, like easy peasy. Yeah. I mean, he had multiple options on that play as well. It's just, they're so good. And, as long as those 3, Kelsey, Reed, and Mahomes stay intact, I think they're going to be very tough to beat. And it really sucks for everyone else in the league, especially those in the AFC, all these good players, whether it be Justin Herbert, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, who, if Patrick Mahomes didn't exist, I think they'd all be winning Super Bowls. I mean,
for sure.
I mean, the Niners would probably have 2 Super Bowls just because the competition is so great.
Yep.
And they're just going to have to find that guy, that Eli Manning, that can beat Tom Brady twice in a Super Bowl. I mean, who's that going to be for Patrick Mahomes? Who's the kryptonite going to be for him? Is it going to be, maybe a little Jordan Love in the future? Is it going to be Caleb Williams? It's going to be something crazy.
That would be wild if it were Caleb Williams.
That would be for the Bears, but
I feel like I would like to see, maybe C.J. Stroud do it in the AFC Championship. I know it wouldn't be in the Super Bowl, but
right. I mean, Joe Burrow has proven to be a little bit of his kryptonite. I mean, Joe Burrow's only lost to him once, I believe. So who knows? Maybe things would have been different if Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert stayed healthy this year. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers obviously will be a factor, but it just, I looked at the odds for next year, and they are, the best odds to make the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, the best odds to win MVP.
Did you see that on FanDuel?
Yeah, it's on FanDuel. They put it up like immediately when the game ended.
Mine said the 49ers were...
Was it the Niners?
They
really?
were the best to win the Super Bowl. They were plus 500 to win,
Really?
and then the Chiefs were plus 650 to win. And I was shocked by that.
Oh, my gosh.
My only thought there was like, potentially, could it be that Vegas doesn't think there's any way that the Chiefs are winning 3 straight, and that's the reason why the Niners were favored?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard, like, to keep betting against the Chiefs. Like, you just keep getting burned. I mean, they're underdogs against the Bills, the Ravens, the Niners, and they just win them all. It's so hard to keep betting against them, but... I mean, I guess they're looking at Brock Purdy's cheap. You know, they still don't have to pay him anything, so they should be able to keep most of their players. You know, McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle. And with Chiefs, you know, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, they need to draft another receiver for sure. I mean, I think some of the receivers still made some mistakes in this game. I mean, that Marvez Valdez-Scantling, when he went backwards when he already could have stopped for like a positive
that was a ridiculous play.
And he goes back 4 yards.
He was trying to pull like what Tyreek Hill does so successfully, but you got to remember, Marquez, you're not Tyreek,
You're
bro.
not Tyreek, exactly. I mean... I thought it was hilarious, too. Chris Jones on the sideline yelling at him, Mahomes yelling at him. Because, I mean, those are the mistakes that those receivers have been making all year. I mean, Rashee Rice obviously was better. And there was that play going into, it was at the end of the game before overtime where Rashee Rice was open going underneath along the middle of the field. Instead, Mahomes went to Kelsey in the corner there, and it went incomplete, and they kicked the field goal. But Rashee was screaming that he was open, which he was. But you got to remember that if he were to get tackled in bounds, it could be a little bit precarious. Exactly, because they didn't have that much time. I think it was 10 seconds.
Right.
So it was a little precarious. They did have a timeout, so it could have been fine. It could have scored a touchdown, but those receivers are young, and I definitely think they need to draft one in this upcoming draft class. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see going on. I didn't like the odds that they gave for Justin Herbert MVP. It was only plus 1,300, so I decided to stay away. I wanted more value than that. I mean, he has like the 6th best odds to win MVP.
That's honestly really surprising to me. I mean, he didn't do, I know he got injured, but I don't know, he didn't do anything this year. So the fact that they're putting him all the way up at plus 1,300, and it's really
of Jim Harbaugh.
I mean, it's still a major question mark though, whether or not they're even going to mesh together as as quarterback and coach. And so that should be much lower odds, like in terms of.
I think it'll be good, but I don't think that the value is there at all.
I agree.
Vegas would probably be a little bit more, apprehensive of it, like you are.
Right.
But let's get into our best bets here. And I'm sure we'll continue talking about the Super Bowl as things come up. But I did take Kansas City plus 2.5 at minus 125. Obviously, they won outright, so that hit. I think I took Kansas City in the spread last time against the Ravens. So I just know, even though I keep picking against them, at least take the spread bet. Over 47 didn't hit, 47.5 as we talked about. Now, while Christian McCaffrey didn't get any passing yards, I smelled something. And Juwan Jennings. I knew they were going to do something like that. And so I guess, I was somewhat, accurate on the trickery that they were going to engage. But Juwan Jennings was the passer in that situation. My final score was 27-26. So rather close, but not quite. CMC MVP actually looked like it was going to hit for a while, and I think it became the best odds. There was a point in the game where that was the best.
You could continue to live bet on the MVP?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even realize that.
And I think it was one point like plus 180 in the game.
Oh, no way.
I know Nick Bosa was surging there. I mean, Brock Purdy had pretty good odds at one point. And then as the game went on, it just all flipped. And, obviously the fumble didn't help him, but he still had a really good game. Lots of receiving yards in addition to his rushing yards. So I thought there was just good value there. I mean, that came rather close to hitting. I really do think that, maybe in overtime, if Brock Purdy, like I said, hits McCaffrey when he was open there and he makes that first down, he could have even maybe scored on that play.
So let's say that the Chiefs do not convert their 4th and 1 in overtime. Who's winning MVP for the 49ers?
See, man, that is really tough because I think, Juwan Jennings had a case as well.
I agree.
They could have even given it to Brock Purdy. So, honestly, I don't know. It's hard for me to say.
I think I would say it would be Juwan over CMC, but I'm not sure that Juwan would have beaten out Brock. Yeah.
No, it's very possible. They love giving it to a quarterback. So, yeah. I mean, it was kind of like a really big team effort there for a while.
It really was, yeah.
And since they weren't able to like get that last touchdown, I mean, I think whoever honestly scored the last touchdown, if they did get one in overtime, would have won it.
Yeah.
If Brock passed the CMC, I think CMC would have got it. If Brock passed to anyone else, Brock would have gotten it. Or unless
Juwan
it was
passed?
Juwan. Juwan was making some crazy grabs.
Dude, he was playing out of his mind for this game.
He was.
I hardly even know who the guy is until his name
so
kept
underrated.
getting called. Yeah.
Because Debo and Ayuk especially Debo, were rather quiet.
Yeah, Debo went out a little bit with that hamstring injury.
Yeah, he was disappointing. I took him in the over 58.5 yards or whatever it was, and that didn't even come close to hitting. It was the only thing in my prize picks bet because they gave a Patrick Mahomes free square, only needed 1 yard. I had that. I had McCaffrey over his receiving, and I had Harrison Butker over 1.5 field goals.
Yeah.
So 3 of my 4 hit. So I still got paid out because I do my flex play.
Love that.
But Debo let me down.
Dude, come on, Debo. You got to do better than that next time.
He does. I mean, he needed a whole nother 25 yards.
It was all the stars for the 49ers, on the receiving core. You had Kittle, who finished with, I think, 4 yards.
Yeah, I know, man.
And Ayuk only had 43 maybe? Something low.
It's disappointing. I can't believe they couldn't get those guys more involved.
Yeah.
Especially Kittle.
Right.
I mean, Kittle is such a game changer whenever he touches the ball.
He was just blocking incessantly the whole game.
That's important and all
for
that.
sure, but he's made so many plays all season long. Just
sure.
over the middle, 25+ yard gains.
I mean, he had 3 touchdowns in a single game at one point. So really kind of disappointing on that end. I really feel bad for Kittle. He's my favorite guy on that team, and he's such an emotional player. I know this one probably really hurt him since he's one of the players that was there last time when they lost to the Chiefs. That reminds me, before we get to your bets here, I just want to go over this crazy comparison. You may have even seen this, that someone drew between 2020 and this year. Not just football related, but we'll start with the football stuff. Chiefs beat the Niners in the Super Bowl. That happened in 2020 and this year.
Yep.
What also happened both years, Lamar Jackson won MVP. The Ravens won the AFC North. The Texans win the AFC South with 10 wins. The Chiefs win the AFC West. The Chargers are last place in the AFC West. Washington last place in the NFC East with 13 losses. Panthers last in the NFC South. And again, to be clear, all of that stuff happened in both 2020 and 2024. Let's continue. The 49ers win the NFC West. The Cardinals are last in the NFC West. The Chiefs are the home team in the Super Bowl. The 49ers are the number 1 seed. Now let's get to some non-football related stats. Billie Eilish won Song of the Year in both. Back to football, the Chiefs were plus 600 preseason odds to win the Super Bowl in both. The Niners beat the Packers in the playoffs in both. And then there's a bunch of projections for other sports right here. Bruins and Maple Leafs finished in the top 5 in the East in 2020, both of which are currently in the top 5 now. Avalanche finished in second in the West in 2020. They are currently in second in the West now. The Celtics and the Bucks both finished top 3 in the East in 2020, and they are both currently top 3 in the East right now. The Nuggets finished 3rd in the West in 2020, and they are currently 3rd right now. The number 1 seed won in the college football playoff, the national championship. It was Alabama in 2020, and now it was Michigan. The college football playoff consisted of 2 undefeated teams in both years. The loser of that lost by 3 scores. Joel Embiid had surgery to repair his left hand in 2020. Joel Embiid has surgery to repair his left knee this year. The Panthers fired Ron Rivera after a loss in 2020. The Commanders fired Ron Rivera after a loss in 2024. And finally, the winner of the Citrus Bowl scored 35 points in both years.
Dude, that is absolutely wacky. It must just be something about these leap years that get these correlations going. I don't know.
It's a glitch in the simulation.
I guess
the
so.
computer just spat out the same thing. It had an absolute malfunction.
So. That is so wacky. I did not see any of those.
Yeah, I know. It'd be crazy if some of those hockey and basketball things finished like they did in 2020 as well. I'm sure that won't all happen, but it'd be wild.
For sure. Yeah, those are some wacky stats.
Actually, hold on. I'm sorry. There's one more thing I wanted to show you and talk about as well. Oh, yeah. So the Cousins curse persist.
No way.
We talked about this a few pods ago, how whoever loses to Kirk Cousins cannot win the Super Bowl in that same year. And the Niners did lose to Kirk Cousins in some of the few games that he did play and win this year. And that's just absolutely mind-boggling, the fact that persists, because it was looking like it wasn't going to. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of crazy as well that the Chiefs beat the Vikings by like 7 points this year. So,
do you think it'll persist if Kirk moves on from the Vikings?
I mean, I think it will. I don't think there's any reason to doubt the Cousins curse at this point. It just seems like a law of nature.
Oh, dude, yeah.
You have to beat you have to beat the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. Course, you have to if you want to have a good season and win the Super Bowl. Otherwise, you're just screwed. You might as well quit if you lose to them.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, it's more relevant than Newton's third law of motion. So
pretty much. So let's hear about your best bets.
Yeah. So I had Mahomes MVP at plus 125. No value there whatsoever, but it did hit. It hit, so that's what counts. I said that the correct score would be 31-29 Kansas City. A little bit further away than what you were, but at least still had Kansas City winning, which was good.
Close margin there.
Yeah, and then Travis did not propose to Taylor on the field. I'm honestly really surprised. I really, really thought he was going to.
Yeah, I honestly didn't think he would. I don't think that she would be a fan of that, to be honest. It seems a little too soon.
That is true. If we're talking about things that she wasn't a fan of, though, did you see the face that she was making when he's screaming Viva Las Vegas into the mic?
Oh, I actually didn't. I thought you were going to talk about when he went to go body Andy Reid on the sidelines and started yelling at him.
No, yeah, he did do that, and I did not even see Taylor's reaction to that, but he was really going off on Andy. I can't believe a player would ever speak to their coach that way.
Yeah, well, when you're Travis Kelce and you're a Hall of Fame tight end, and you're Dane Taylor Swift.
He wants to be in the game to impress his woman,
Yeah. I can't believe that he honestly did that still, but it's Travis Kelce, so he can get away with it.
Yeah, but after the game, Kelce was speaking to Goodell, and he was just yelling into the mic, "Viva Las Vegas!" And
it's hilarious.
And they keep panning to Taylor, who's making the funniest face ever. She's a half smirk, probably because she's trying to smile because she knows she's got 17,000 cameras on her.
Yeah.
But in reality, she's getting the ick because
the ick.
Travis is just going nuts, screaming into the mic.
Well, you have to expect that if you're dating a football player,
that's true.
Who has the biggest ego and just won the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just bound to happen. I think most of us would probably go nuts in that situation as well. But I'm sure he got some good action afterwards.
Oh, dude, he had to have.
100%. Yeah. The highest rated Super Bowl in terms of television views of all time at 123 million. So that has to be because of Taylor.
Oh, dude, 100%.
Or at least partially. I think a lot of it has to do with betting as well.
Yeah, but definitely a combination of both. I'm sure there were more women watching this one because of all the Swifties and whatnot.
Yeah, I think they did say that they brought in 2 million new female viewers.
Wow, that's wild.
That's why, see, I honestly, as time went on, I just could not visualize Taylor and the Chiefs losing. It could not compute in my head what would happen. What would Taylor Swift look like if they lost? I could not imagine the camera panning up to the box and seeing a sad Taylor. I don't think that was ever possible. I don't think that could happen.
Yeah, it was always Chiefs winning this game because of the Taylor situation.
Definitely a smart bet, yeah.
Yeah, and then closing off my best bets here, the Magic Conch finally got another one right, betting on Kansas City to cover 2.5 point spread. So we're up to 2-4 for the Conch now, still operating from the negatives, I guess, hitting at a 33% rate.
Well, at least we can't take the fade anymore. We're still kind of in the confusion zone.
Yeah, definitely the confusion zone. I like that. Yeah, but we are going to have to continue using a Magic Conch bet somewhere. I brought it this week because I wanted to just put it on a basketball game, just one little whatever game.
Yeah, I'll pull up a game in a little bit, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, do we think the Lions could have beaten the Chiefs? I mean, they were very, very close to beating the Niners. Do we think they could have beaten the Chiefs?
I mean, it really depends on, it depends on a lot of things. I would like to have seen that, but in reality, I don't think that it was ever in the script for Detroit to come in and beat Kansas City. I mean, I think Kansas City was destined to win this Super Bowl, and just from the outset with the Taylor Travis situation, they were going to beat whatever team they faced in the playoffs. And so I even if Detroit happened to make it here, don't think that they would have. But like, I would have loved to see them, play.
Yeah, you're probably right. My optimist inside me thinks that they could have, just because of all the mistakes Kansas City made.
Yep.
Like we talked about, they left a lot to be desired.
Oh, they did.
They opened the door multiple times for the 49ers. I don't think they would have made some of the similar mistakes that the Niners ended up making. And we also know that, Dan Campbell probably would have, been a little bit more aggressive on fourth down.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they go for it on that 4th and 4 at the, in overtime. So I think there was actually a better chance the Niners could have beaten them given how the Chiefs played, but obviously it's a huge what if. And I also do want to talk about the fact that Kyle Shanahan elected to receive the ball in overtime instead of kick it to the Chiefs, because it just completely changed the way you could play. It's honestly super interesting, such a game theory type of situation when if you are the second team to possess the ball in overtime and you are not yet in field goal range, you have to go for it on every 4th down.
Right.
So that completely changes how you call the plays. You're more aggressive. You think to yourself, oh, we have 3rd and 6. Well, we have 2 chances to get 6 yards. That doesn't sound so bad.
Right.
But if you're the Niners, I mean, you have to kick the field goal and then leave it up to your defense. But if you flip the script, they would have been the ones playing a little bit more conservatively. Maybe they kick a field goal and then you have to play more aggressive. Maybe then you can go down and get a touchdown. I think going forward, if you ever see overtime in playoffs again, which I'm sure we will, whoever wins the toss absolutely has to kick, defer, whatever you want to call it, the ball.
Yeah.
You have to, because you are favored. It is more advantageous to you if you get to play a 4-down ball game. So it's honestly a big coaching blunder in that regard. I just don't think, it's almost like Kyle Shanahan didn't know the new rules.
Yeah, I was just about to say, in the overtime of old, that is 100% what you do. You take the ball, because if you score on the first possession,
the game's over.
Exactly. You score
just
a
like
touchdown.
what happened to Buffalo last time.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense that
it's funny. It's like when the rules were the other way, it benefited the Chiefs, and now the rules are the other way, and wow, it still benefits the Chiefs. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. Did you see what Joe Biden posted on his Instagram page after the game ended?
Oh God.
It was, dude. It was like, it wasn't like a meme. It was like legitimately Biden, but he just put on there, just like we drew it up at Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't understand like the motivation behind this message at all. And like he had like these laser beams coming out of his eyes.
That's hilarious. I've seen that picture before.
Really? Dude, I really
I've seen
can't
people
believe
make edits of that. I cannot believe he posted that on his own Instagram account.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up here. Oh man, I'm struggling for a sec. I just read like a whole article about it, and they were basically saying that it's because he wants like Taylor to basically like endorse him in the presidential race.
Oh my God, that's actually like, smart though.
Yeah, so he's saying like, oh yeah, I'm making like a little statement.
He's a Chiefs fan now, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah, something
that's
along
honestly,
those lines.
That's a huge kind of desperation move to align yourself with the Chiefs and kind of become a bandwagon to help you win the election.
Here we go. I don't know why it took me so long to pull it up there, but it's just like a wacky post,
so
and literally with the caption, just like we drew it up at Kansas City Chiefs.
I can't believe he'd actually post something like that.
Yeah, I just thought it was wild.
Oh, Biden. All right. Enough about the Super Bowl. Let's get on to recapping the NFL Player Awards. That was not this past Thursday, but the previous one. I believe it was, right? Yeah, I think so. Or was it? No, it was just this past Thursday.
Yeah.
Silly me. This is going to be heated because I honestly don't agree with a lot of these. MVP went to Lamar Jackson. And as I was saying for most of the season, I felt Josh Allen deserved it just because of his sheer numbers. And also, he really does feel like the heart and soul of that team. Like he is the embodiment of the Bills. Granted, they had a better running game this year, but Stephon Diggs had a down year, and so he was making stuff happen with
for sure
Khalil Shakir and Gabe Davis and all these other inconsistent receivers. Even though he had a ton of turnovers, he still ended up with the most touchdowns in the league. He had an NFL record for a quarterback rushing touchdowns. And he made it to the divisional round against all odds when he was, 6-6 and not even favored to make the playoffs. I mean, they won the division. I thought that was all because of him. I mean, the Bills are nothing without Josh Allen. Their defense fell apart. So I thought he is the most valuable player, whereas Lamar Jackson had far, far less total touchdowns, total yards. I mean, you think of Lamar Jackson as the guy who rushes and all that, but Josh Allen had way more touchdowns than him, and even though Lamar led his team to the number 1 seed and finally played a full healthy season, just don't think he was as important to the Ravens as Josh Allen was to the Bills. I think the Ravens have, a exponentially better defense, and so at the end of the day, I'm not like super pissed about it, but that one does kind of sting me a little bit. I think there are even better candidates than Josh Allen, or better candidates than Lamar, in addition to Josh Allen, maybe Dak, maybe Brock Purdy, maybe even Jordan Love. They all have better numbers than him at the end of the day. And I know it's not all about the numbers, but I don't think you can win MVP when you have a total of 27 passing touchdowns or whatever it was. It just rubs me the wrong way.
For sure.
Especially, there was a year, it was 2020, when there were so many quarterbacks who had, MVP caliber stats. Like, Deshaun Watson and Ryan Tannehill were both like in the 30s of passing touchdowns, and neither of them won MVP. I think that was a Aaron Rodgers MVP year. So,
yeah, I mean, putting aside my love for Josh Allen and any biases that I might have
it's
here,
still Josh Allen.
Yeah, I agree with you though. I mean, he did play out of his mind, and I would have loved to see him win MVP. I'm wondering if it's just because of the fact that he lost 6 games there in the middle of the season, and like that's what set him back. And I don't know, when Lamar beat the Dolphins that one week is kind of when you said, all right, this solidified it. Like, it's going to Lamar.
I mean, Lamar did have better wins, but when he played, I know he played great against the Dolphins and the Lions, but
he doesn't feel like the most valuable piece on that team.
You look at some of the games he played, like Gus Edwards is the most valuable player in some of these games when they played the Cardinals. I mean, the blow against the Seahawks, he didn't even play that well. Some of the games against the Bengals, it wasn't really him who played amazingly, and he didn't even play the final game of the season. He basically was able to clinch MVP with far worse stats than a bunch of other players in the league, and he played one less game. So,
and I mean, their defense was just impeccable. I mean, Kyle Hamilton, did phenomenal things for them this season. He was running all over the field, and Josh Allen does not have a defense that was capable of such things.
Especially with all the injuries and all that. Yeah. So, disappointing to see that for sure, but I mean, I knew that was going to be the case for the longest time now. Some of these other ones are a little bit more surprising and therefore fresh, kind of fresh wounds. But Offensive Player of the Year went to Christian McCaffrey. Fully believe in this one. I think he could have even won MVP. So just super happy to see him. Almost kind of feels like a comeback story because he really dealt with some crazy injuries just a couple years ago on the Panthers, and everyone kind of thought he was washed. He went from being everyone's number 1 pick in the fantasy draft to be kind of like a forgettable player. So happy to see him get awarded with this. I think it's fully deserved.
Yeah, I mean, he is just an absolute weapon. Very great season out of him. He gets a touchdown every single game. I mean, you don't see that from any other player in the league.
Every single game. It's like there's no value to bet on him for any time.
He's like minus 230 every time.
It's basically like a given. And it's true, though. It's true.
I know. I mean, you don't see those kind of odds for any other player. I mean, even Josh Allen, who was getting a rushing touchdown most games, he was still plus 100 for it plenty of times.
Absolutely.
Late into the season, too. So, good stuff there for Christian. I will say, though, that it feels like I agree that he should have gotten it. However, I feel like Puka should be on this list, even though like he obviously would not have beaten out Christian.
No.
And he wouldn't have beaten out CJ for Rookie of the Year. But it feels like a disservice to like what Puka was able to accomplish this year as a rookie on the Rams offense to not have him on the list, even though I don't feel that he would have beaten out any of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Puka, if anything, would have been the offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
But he had a terrible draw in terms of the competition.
Oh, for sure.
Who would have thought CJ Stroud would have had such a phenomenal year?
Mm-hmm.
And it still is really close. I mean, CJ missed a couple of games, and so I think Puka certainly had an argument to be made. But at the end of the day, CJ Stroud broke a ton of records, led his team to a playoff win. I think he also is deserving of Offensive Rookie of the Year, and so I have no issue with that one. Personally, I really wish two players could win it. I think Puka definitely would have been very deserving of it as well. I would have had no problem if Puka won it, no problem if CJ won it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that CJ was still the right choice. I was just saying that it just feels weird not having Puka on the list for what he did accomplish. But, I mean, with CJ going into the playoffs and, getting a monster victory over Cleveland, I mean, that's just remarkable what he was able to accomplish. First ever playoff game. And, I know that he kind of faltered against Baltimore, but he's got to be having a lot of nerves going on.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, it's his first rookie season.
Yeah, I know. So. Even to make it into the divisional round there as a rookie is really remarkable. And
absolutely.
Just to still play well. I mean, he's not even like making he's not making significant mistakes like turning the ball over 2 or 3 times.
He still didn't even turn the ball over against the Ravens.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. I mean, against like the best defense in the league, or second best if you want to say Cleveland is. But,
yeah, and he lit up Cleveland. So
yeah,
happy about that. Speaking of Cleveland, Defensive Player of the Year went to Myles Garrett. Now, I'm not obviously as big of a defensive guy as I am offensive, but I still don't fully agree with this one. I think there were some better options than Myles Garrett. I mean, not to say Myles Garrett didn't have a bad season, but I think TJ Watt from Pittsburgh was phenomenal, I think.
You think it's because he got injured, though? I mean, he probably got booted from it since he missed a lot of weeks.
Yeah, it's possible, but some of these other guys miss weeks. I mean, Lamar missed a week. CJ missed 2 weeks. I mean, Christian McCaffrey,
that's a good point.
For points of the games, was pulled, I remember. So it's tough. This one I'm not as upset about as, the upcoming 2 that we'll talk about, but oh my God, why am I blanking? Oh, Antoine Winfield of the Bucs, man, he had a phenomenal year. I thought he could have had a case for Defensive Player of the Year. I think, there's a lot of players.
Micah Parsons? Or no?
I don't think Micah had a huge year. I mean, there are some of the Cowboys players were, electric. Darren Bland with all those pick sixes is pretty elite. But he also gave up a ton of yards. I'm trying to think of some other defensive players that I would kind of give a nod to. But, yeah, I mean, TJ Watt kind of in specific and Antoine Winfield for sure. I mean, Myles Garrett's an undeniable, wreck.
Talent,
I mean, he was a force of nature. I just don't think he had the kind of year that stacked up against some of these other guys. But is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add about that. My defensive knowledge is not quite as in touch with everything as my offensive knowledge. I don't really know who else I would propose there. I mean, just like when I'd watch Cowboys games, I'd hear Micah's name
Mike
getting called
crazy,
all the time, but
he had a little bit of a down year, I would say.
Okay, I got you.
Will Anderson Jr. won Defensive Rookie of the Year. I don't have an issue with this one either. I mean, there are some other players out there like Witherspoon of the Seahawks. But yeah, I have really no issue with this one either. It's kind of crazy that Houston and Cleveland ended up with so many of the award winners here.
I know,
but
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with this one. So, I mean, yeah, good for him. I think it was relatively, I think honestly going into the season that he was kind of the guy you were looking at, maybe Jalen Carter on the Eagles as well, but Will Anderson Jr. definitely had the better year.
But Kevin Stefanski, though, you've got a little bit of an issue with that.
I got an issue, yeah. I mean, Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year in 2020 when Cleveland made the playoffs and almost they beat Pittsburgh, and then they almost beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, and so he won it there. Deservingly so. And not to say he didn't have a phenomenal year. I mean, overcoming all these injuries to, Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson, going through all these quarterbacks, going through Dorian Thompson-Robinson, PJ Walker, all these, just crazy injuries that you would think, like I said at one point, Cleveland's done. Like once Deshaun Watson got hurt, I thought, okay, yeah, they have like a good record now, but they're going to start losing games and they're not going to make the playoffs. And, that absolutely did not happen. And a lot of that is because of Kevin Stefanski. But I would say that D'Amico Ryans, again, of Houston would have won. So I know it's like going back and forth between two teams. But I remember saying, or maybe I didn't say it in the pod, but that Houston-Cleveland playoff game was almost like a de facto Coach of the Year game decider because both of them were like right there. And I thought the week before that against the Colts, Texans-Colts, was also kind of like a Coach of the Year decider because Shane Steichen had a phenomenal year with the Colts, also overcoming injuries to Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor at the beginning of the season. So I thought he also had a case to win. But I would have gone with D'Amico Ryans just because he took the Texans, who were an absolute abysmal
last
organization.
in the league,
they were horrible last year. They almost had the number one pick until they beat the Colts in the final week of last year to make them into a division winner, a playoff game winner, and all of that. And though, granted, a lot of people think that a lot of it has to do with the offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, and obviously C.J. Stroud, but I still would have given it to him. This one is a little bit closer, though, than the one we're going to talk about next, but I still have a little bit of a tooth to pick with this, or whatever they say. What's the analogy? I have a bone to pick. There it is. Yeah.
I actually thought that you were going to say Dan Campbell was
he was another good pick. I would say, Dan Campbell, for sure. He very easily could have won as well. I mean,
he's absolutely whipped Detroit into shape, and I know that they
could have
did
won
not.
Last year. Actually, so last year
Brian
was Brian
Dable
Dable of the Giants, which I do agree with that one, but feel kind of bad for Dan. He's just had two unlucky years where he's had so much competition to go up against.
Oh,
but,
for sure, yeah.
If you were to ask Dan Campbell, he wouldn't care at all. He wants his team to win. He's all about the team. He doesn't care about these individual awards.
Exactly.
But I honestly think Dan Campbell and D'Amico Ryans were better candidates than Kevin Stefanski.
I can agree with that.
Comeback player of the year went to Joe Flacco. Now, as much as I love Joe Flacco, I think it should have gone to Baker Mayfield. I'm not even going to talk about Damar Hamlin. I'm sorry, guys. It's a nice story and all that, but when Buffalo, when they went for that fake punt against the Chiefs with Damar Hamlin,
that was the craziest play I've ever seen.
Yeah, it hurts my brain that they did that. It almost felt like they were trying to get Damar Hamlin this award. Who knows if they get that punt, Damar Hamlin probably wins this award just because of that one play.
Yeah.
I know what happened last year with his injury, but I just don't think, due to his body of work this year, he should not have won the award. Now, obviously he didn't. Joe Flacco did. And I'm going to tell you now why Joe Flacco should not have won the award. What did he start? 5 games, 6 games, including the playoffs. Sure, he had 13 touchdowns and maybe 5 interceptions or something like that. But you got to take the full season into account. Baker Mayfield started every single game for the Bucs. 2 additional ones in the playoffs, one of which he won and played absolutely amazing, and the second of which he played pretty gosh darn well as well. He had the 2 interceptions, the second one being his fault, but the first one bounced off Mike Evans' hands. So I really think Baker Mayfield should have been the undeniable winner of this award. He came back from a wretched season last year where he started on the Panthers, got sent over to the Rams, had that comeback win against the Raiders, and then had kind of middling success with the Rams for the remainder of the year. Then goes to the Bucs, literally competes against Kyle Trask, who no one even knows of, for the starting role for the Bucs QB position. Ends up winning it, has a great year, 28 touchdowns, 9 interceptions or something like that. Obviously, only won 9 games, but to make it to the divisional round, who cares at that point? He had a wonderful year, and I thought he revitalized his career after a horrible end to his tenure with the Browns, and yet Browns quarterback ends up winning this award. And I like Joe Flacco. I love what he did, and it was a great story. But kind of crashed and burned against the Texans, whereas Baker Mayfield, I mean, no one expected them to, make it to the divisional round and, almost win that game even. So
yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the week or the year prior, I mean, Baker played in 14 games and he only won 3 of them, which is just absolutely atrocious. And obviously that's with multiple teams because he's traded, mid-season.
Right.
So, that was just an abysmal season for Baker. And then he comes back this season. I mean, he wasn't even like in necessarily a starting role for the entire season last year. And so now he comes in, Tampa deems him to be their starter from week 1, and he plays every single game for the whole season.
Yeah,
and just goes nuts
through it all. I mean, there were not many quarterbacks this year that started every game. I mean, Baker literally started them all. I mean, even Mahomes sat out the last week. I mean, that's why I just think that says a lot when it comes to these awards. I mean, Josh Allen started every game. Thought he should have won MVP. Just feel like it kind of just comes down to how much you worked and got after it. I mean, this one bothers me a little bit.
Yeah.
I really feel for Baker, but I think it'll just kind of add to the chip on his shoulder and the way he plays, his swagger and all of that. And so I wish him the best of luck. I think the Bucs will re-sign him and hopefully they can continue to have some success down there.
Yeah, that would be great to see for Baker. I was not his biggest fan at the start of the season.
No, neither was I. I thought he was a little too cocky.
Yep.
Especially for the way he played. I remember watching him against the Packers a few years ago, and they were in the game. Like, they could have easily won it. Baker threw 4 interceptions in this said game, and it's like the fact that they only lost by like 6 or 7 or something like that might have even been as low as 4 points. It's just like, it's disgusting. I mean, but granted, at that point he was playing through a shoulder injury because he wanted to help his team out, and instead of sitting out like the pussy Deshaun Watson is, he actually played through his injury, and it ended up biting him in the ass because he got traded for his poor performance during that time. So just a great turnaround, and that's a comeback, If you ask me, that's
it
a
really
comeback,
is.
So.
But yeah, I mean, I guess he's not even going to be in the running for comeback player of the year next year since his comeback was this year.
Yeah, you'd have to have like another. I mean, what's he gotta do? What's he gotta do to win? Does he have to like take a whole season off, like shoot him in the foot or something? I don't know. Yeah,
maybe just go and retire for a year and like Brady and then just come back. I don't know.
Who do we think could win comeback player of the year next year, though, is the real question. I mean, just
that's
had
tough. It's like
a downright bad year? We're trying to think of someone who got injured. Maybe, Justin Herbert, maybe. But I don't even think he would qualify.
Would Burrow or no? Because he also...
See, I love Burrow, but I just don't think him and Herbert really... They missed like about half. Burrow missed like half. Justin Herbert missed like a quarter or a third of the season. I just don't think that's enough to come back from. I mean, they were always undisputed starters of their teams as well. I'm trying to think of somebody
like Burrow
else.
Even like still like... He still did solid. Like, he still started every single game.
They both played really well, I thought, this year in the games that they played. Joe Burrow had the injury at the beginning, but
and he battled
they
through
both put up big numbers.
I don't know. I feel like it could be someone that we just like haven't seen in like a few years.
Kind of like a Joe Flacco again.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone who's just kind of been out and not really doing a whole lot.
Like
and
Phillip
suddenly
Rivers comes back.
Dude, I don't know.
Drew Brees comes back or something. Matt Ryan.
Yeah, that could happen.
Like, I feel like Kyler Murray could have had a chance, but like he already played a bunch this year.
Yeah.
So I just don't think it could even have been him.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Trying to think very hard. Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, dude.
Doesn't it have to be?
Yeah, it probably will be. Yeah, he basically did take the entire season off.
I want to see the odds on that. I guarantee you Aaron Rodgers
has
the best odds.
Do they have player awards already posted, or is it just MVP? Okay.
But maybe there's some obscure website that has them.
Oh, there probably is, yeah.
All right, guys. That's all I have to say. I've gotten everything off my chest for now.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add there. Do you want to just get a little basketball game going here this week that we can put a little Magic Conch action on? I just want to keep continuing to track it. So the final record for the Conch this year for the NFL season was 2-4. We started it very late, but next year we're going to track it throughout the whole season. I want to start a little basketball Magic Conch action.
It's almost March Madness, so I say we put it on a college basketball game, if you ask me. I'm going to find the biggest game here
I can roll
of
with
the
that.
week. Do you see Cornell has a chance of making the tournament?
I did not see that, but
They've
that
been
would
playing
be
very well.
Bro, that would be pretty elite.
They did lose to Yale, but they did beat Princeton. So they're like basically tied with, I think, Yale for the lead in the Ivy League.
Princeton won it last year, and they just went crazy.
They made a deep run. But
well, as both Cornell students ourselves, we might have to, be sure to tune in and watch that.
Yeah, no, I'm actually very excited. I really hope they can win. They just got to beat Yale at home next time they play.
Yep.
All right, let's see here. I'm trying to see. There's some big games. I'm just trying to find like a really big ranked matchup. Top 25. Let's see here. Saturday. Oh my God, there's a humongous slate of games. All right, let's go with Kentucky at Auburn on Saturday at 5 p.m. Central Time. Actually, no, scratch that. This is the better one. Marquette at Connecticut. That's the 4-ranked team at the 1-ranked team.
Oh, wow. So who's 1? Is it Connecticut?
Yeah. Marquette is 4. That's Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time.
Good stuff. So what's the spread on it right now?
You know what? So CBS does not have that loaded in, but let's see if FanDuel does. I hope they do.
We will ask the Magic Conch while you're pulling up the spread.
I mean, I know Connecticut will be favored.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, they're at home.
Yeah.
But Magic Conch, what's the play for the Marquette at Connecticut NCAA men's top 25 basketball game this weekend?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, Conch-a-roo.
Oh, man, have they not come out with it yet?
Favorite. Well, it likes Connecticut.
So whatever the spread will end up being.
We're taking it. We're hammering Connecticut this weekend.
I like that. Honestly, I like that because it's so hard to win on the road, let alone cover. It's so hard to cover on the road, let alone win when you're going up against tough teams like UConn here. So there you guys have it. Thank you as always for tuning in. We'll see if we can get some more content out. We definitely will, continue with the pod despite it being the off season. We're going to get into free agency.
Yep.
We're going to do that QB review that we talked about, do some, mock draft type stuff,
For sure,
some fantasy type stuff as the weeks go on. So
and if you guys have any ideas of stuff that you want us to post, be sure to comment or let us know, and we'd be happy to do that.
Or email. The email is always in the description. Thank you guys as always, and we'll see you next week.